Hello and welcome to another Paula Armstrong ceramics. So for this video I thought I'm starting to plan things to make for the festive season. So I thought it would be nice to make a tea light. And I've got a very simple pinch pot tea light that I make for gifts at the festive season. So I thought I would show you how to make one of those. It's just a sphere shape with lots of holes in a pattern, any pattern that you want to make, so you could change those to suit. So I hope you enjoy it. So the first thing we're going to do is turn our clay into a ball. So we need a solid round ball. Doesn't have to be too neat. And what we're going to do is turn this solid ball into a hollow ball. So we're going to cut this in half. If you wrap the wire around about halfway down, put the handles into one hand towards yourself, the other hand stabilize the top of the clay, and then just pull through. From here we're going to take one half, pop it in the palm of your non-dominant hand, take the pad of your thumb and press down into the middle. What we're aiming for is a thickness of about 5 millimeters, somewhere around there. We're then going to tip the clay up slightly and press towards the outside edge. We're leaving this flat edge here because we're going to put the two pieces together and I want something to join. But this is going to be about 5 millimeters as well. We're then going to turn the clay slightly and press again and keep repeating that all the way round. So you end up with what looks like a daisy pattern pressed into the clay. I'm also pressing against the palm of my hand and trying not to press against my fingers. If you press against your fingers, you'll end up with the marks from your fingers in the outside of the clay. And while that's not terrible, it just means you'll have a bit of a tidy up to do later. Whereas if you press against the palm of your hand, it keeps it much smoother on the outside. Once we've got that kind of daisy pattern on the inside, we use the pad of our thumb and just even out the thickness a little. And you can do that by smoothing. Again, I'm pressing against my palm, not my fingers, to try and keep the outside smooth. So this should even out the thickness. You want to get rid of those points where we've pressed down with the thumb and even out. And smooth the inside as well. As we're doing the holes through this, the inside will be visible, so we need this relatively neat. And then we can go around and just lightly pinch the edges to make sure that they're the thickness that we want. Try not to pinch too much around the edges or you might just flare the piece out, so the sides just all fall down and you end up losing the spherical shape. When one's done, we then do the other side in exactly the same way. So we press down to the middle, tip it up, press to the outside, turn and press to the outside, and keep going around till we have the daisy pattern showing. And then we even out the thickness and smooth the inside. The key with the second half is we need to make sure that this ends up the right size to be able to fit on top of the first half that we did. So we need to make sure that it's not too big or too small to fit. Again, I'm smoothing against the palm of my hand, not my fingers, wherever possible. So this clay is very wet, so these are very flexible still at the minute. So I'm going to dry these off before I assemble them. And I'm just going to use a heat gun, a paint stripper this is, but you can use a hairdryer, you can put it in front of a heater, you could just put it in a warm room and leave them there if you need to. It could be that your clay is dry enough to start with. This was very wet clay that I was using to begin with, so it needs a bit of help to become a little bit stronger. If I tried to join this at the moment, it would all collapse in on itself, and I would struggle very much to keep this spherical. So I'm just going to give it a quick blast with some hot air. Okay. When you use the heat gun, you should be able to feel a difference in the surface of the clay, as well as how flexible it is and how it moves. You can see these are holding their shape much better now. I've got a flat bottom in this where this sphere is sitting on the table, and as I'm going to keep this one as the base, I'm quite happy with having that. I'm just going to go around and make sure this is all a nice even thickness. I'm then going to join that half to this one, and to do that I'm going to score and slip to stick the two halves together. So I'm just scoring the surface, then I'm going to join, and I do that for both surfaces. And then pop some slip on. Slip is just watered down clay. So you just use a bit of the clay that you're using for making and add a bit of water to it. You can, if you don't have any slip at all, just use water, but not too much. And so the top one has just slotted inside the bottom one a bit too much on that side, so I've opened it up and then I'm going to rejoin. There we go. Now where we've got this join, we need to make that disappear, so we're just going to scrape the clay over. Try not to press in too much, otherwise you'll create more of a hamburger shape than our spherical shape. But we want to make the join disappear. So we are literally scraping clay from one side over the other. I'm using a wooden flat tool and I'm using the edge of that tool. I'm not going in with the end like this. I'm using the sides and the flat, because then I can go over and smooth. Okay, so I have a mark here that's where I made the adjustment on the side. So I'm just gonna fill that in a little bit. And because I'm afraid of trapping a little pocket of air in there, I'm just gonna put a bit of slip in there, because where there's slip, I can't trap air. And then I'm gonna go over and fill that in. There we go. Now you can see the shape is altered slightly as I've been doing this, and I've now got something that's not spherical really anymore. So as I've got the air inside, I'm going to use the support from the air to reshape this. So I'm just going to go around gently re-tapping and turn this back into a spherical shape. I do want the flat bottom because I need that for the tea light, so that's fine. But I didn't want a really wide bottom for this. And so we can now have the shape back again. So the next thing to do with this is to smooth. So I have a nice soft rubber kidney. I put it in my fingers so that I've got my thumb on one side, my fingers on the other, and then I can curve it. And I can use it in this curved shape over the outside of the sphere, just to smooth and tidy where I've done the join and all the other marks from the building. You can get rubber kidneys in different, I guess, firmnesses. So you can get soft ones, medium ones, and firm ones. The soft ones are great for smoothing. Medium ones are kind of good all-rounders. And the harder ones are great for shaping. Okay. Once it's smooth and you're happy with the shape, we need to dry off again a little bit. Okay, at this point we need it dry enough that it can hold its shape, and I don't have to worry about altering it when I handle it. So I can now go in and do some more of a final smooth and tidy, particularly around the bottom. This can slightly change the shape again. You can make it lift a little bit more so it's not quite such a kind of heavy bottom sphere, and reverts to a slightly more spherical shape again. Okay, so we need to cut the bottom out to give us a space to put our tea light. So I've got a cookie cutter. I'm going to roughly place it in the center of the bottom, and then very gently I'm going to press and spin the cutter until it should go all the way through. It has on one side and not the other. So I'm going to use my knife and cut the side that it didn't. There we go. Okay. So we can now see the join on the inside here. So I'm going to just go in and neaten all of that. Make the join on the inside disappear the same way as we did with the join on the outside. Then I'm just going to use my thumb, go around and neaten all of that up. Remember not to do any of this work with the sphere on the table. If you put the sphere down, you'll end up with a flat side, because you're working against the flat surface. So whenever you do this, pop the sphere in the palm of your hand and keep it nice and round. Okay, get my shape back a little bit. There we go. And then this piece that we cut out is going to be the base that we put the tea light on. So I'm just going to roll it out a little bit, because we need it a bit bigger than the hole we actually cut out. And I'm going to get a cutter that's bigger than this one to cut the base. This spare edge that I've just cut off, I'm then going to turn into a little coil. I'm going to smooth the edge of this base that I've just cut out, just to neaten it off a little bit. And then I'm going to put the coil in as a circle on the bottom. Leaving enough of this edge for the thickness of the sphere. Score where that coil is going to go. Pop a bit of slip in place. And we'll put the coil back, bit of slip. Two ends to join up. Line it up. Where you want it. And then we're going to just blend the coil down on the outside edge of it into the base. And then I'm just going to tidy and smooth with my finger. Okay. Remember, when you're making this circle, the tea light's got to fit inside, and whatever your shrinkage is for your clay, you need to make the allowances for it. And now our sphere should sit on top of our base like that. Okay, my next job is to decide what pattern I want to do for the hole cutting. And for this one I was thinking a bit of a spiral pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is use one of my wooden tools to draw in a spiral. So I'm going to pop my sphere onto a whirler so that I can turn it while I'm making the line for the tool. Now that I have it on the whirler, I can use this tool to mark in my spiral pattern. And now I have a hole cutter that has like a dagger curved blade, which means I can cut holes of all different sizes with just the one hole cutter. So I can have a bit of play with what holes I want to cut out. The further I press the hole cutter in, the bigger the hole is. You can get hole cutters that are one size, and so you might need a set to do lots of different size holes like this. Okay, I've just given that a bit of a dry now that I've finished all the holes and made this a lot stronger so it's much sturdier, so that I can go around and get rid of all the excess bits of clay on the inside. I'm going to do this first with the flexible metal kidney and just go in and get rid of scraping away as much as I can with the kidney. I'm then going to use a damp sponge and just wipe down the inside. The reason for doing this is twofold. One is for neatness, so that the light can get through the holes better. But it's also a safety issue, because if you have any sharp edges on the inside here and somebody puts their fingers in when they're dealing with the candles, they can cut themselves. This just gets rid of those sharp edges. We can use the damp sponge to tidy more generally. And then the last bit of tidying to do, I'm going to use a paintbrush, a wet paintbrush, and just go in and tidy each of the holes, which is time consuming, but a good idea. Because again, it keeps the holes clear for the light to shine through, makes things a bit safer and tidier. You can use a needle tool if there are any holes that have filled in, so you can push through the holes to make sure they're clear, and then just go around and tidy everything up with the paintbrush. And this is the last job, so for the making. I'm going to, I think, glaze this in a white glaze with some copper oxide in the swirl, so that should give me a little bit of green under the white. And I will show you the final outcome in a YouTube short and on my social media once it's all finished, probably in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like some slightly more in-depth tutorials or just access to more of them, then I have an online membership that has more in-depth videos and more videos of different project ideas, as well as looking at things like glazing and finishing, firing, all of that side of making in clay. If you'd like to check that out, you can check it on my website.